So what do we mean by substring in MySQL? So when we use the substring function, we're actually extracting only part of a full string. So if you see the example here, we have select substring and then we have three parts in brackets. So we have our string, which in this case is example. Then we have two numbers. The first number is where we start our substring, and then the second number is the length of the substring. So in this case, our substring is going to start at the third character in the string. So our string is example, and it's going to start at the third letter. So EXA is the third letter, and then it's going to be a length 3. So it's going to go AMP. So if we run this query here, it should return us a column which is named sub, and then a value which is AMP. So let's run this now. And you can see down here we have the sub column and the value returned is AMP. So this is what happens when we use the substring function. It takes a string, which we define here, and then a comma, and then we define the start index. So in this case it was 3, so it started at the third letter. So E is 1, X is 2, A is 3, so it starts there. And then it has a length of 3, so it goes AMP. And you see here, I've written a comment which explains that. We have the substring, we open a pair of brackets, we have our string in double quotes. Then we have the starting index, and then we have the length. Now the string and the starting index are required. We can't run the substring function without these, but the length is actually optional. And if you don't include that last letter, what it will do is it will return the substring from the starting index all the way to the end. So let's try that now by getting rid of the 3. So we just have the string and we just have the starting index. And let's run that query. And you can see it's returned the whole string starting from the third letter. So starting from A, it's run all the way to the end. So now let's look at a few examples of substring using our cinema booking system. So you can see here I've selected name from films. So if I just run that, it returns all the films in our database, the name column. Now let's take a substring from this name column. Let's start from the first index and return a substring of length 3. So to do that we need to type select substring and then open a pair of brackets, and in that bracket first we need to name the string. So in this case it's the name column is going to be our string, and then the starting index. So I said we wanted to start from the first letter, so our starting index is 1, and then I wanted to return a length 3, so it's going to return the first 3 letters of every film. And then we can use our column name alias, so let's just say as name, or let's call it as short name, seeing it's not the full name. And then we want to type from films. So let's run this query, and it should just return the first 3 letters of each film. So you can see here we have all our films returned, but only the first 3 letters of each film. So now let's use the substring function to return the name field from the films table, but starting from the 5th letter and having a length of 4. So if we copy and paste our query and just change the start from 3 to 5, from 1 to 5, sorry, and our length from 3 to 4, and we can run that, and you can see it's returned all the films starting from the 5th letter and with a length of 4. So you can see the space is counted as a character. So you can see here we have E space RU, and we have 2 E space RU, so that must be Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. and we also have ER space O. I saw one with a colon, yeah. So colon counts as a character, then a space, then an RA, and so on and so on. Now we can also define our starting index as a negative number, and what that will do is, rather than counting the index from the first letter, it's going to start from the end, so it's going to start from this E as -1, and then it's going to count back, so -1, -2, -3, -4, etc. So let's run a substring but with a negative starting index. So let's just copy and paste our substring query again, and let's change this 5 to a -2, and then let's have a length of 2. So this should return the last 2 letters of every single film in the database, in the films table. So you can see here we have ER, which must have been Blade Runner, and then it started at the second last letter, so -2, the second last letter, and it's returned a string of length 2. So we have ER, and then we have Blade Runner 2049, so it's just returned the last 2 letters, and so on and so on. So this starting index can also be a negative number. So let's run one final example of our substring query. Let's run a substring. Let's keep the starting index negative. Let's do -6 and then a length of 5. So let's run this query, and you can see that it's returned a substring of the films with a length 5, starting from the 6th letter from the end. So you can see here we have runner, so it started from the 6th letter from the end, so we have RUNNER, but it's only returned a string of length 5, so it's not returned that final R, and so on for every single film. So that's it for using the substring function in MySQL. Just remember that we have the substring keyword, and then in brackets we have our string or our column, and then we have a comma, then we have our starting index, and then we have our length. And remember, the string and the starting index are required, but the length is optional. So we only have to state a string or a column, and then one number, which will be our starting index. But if you want to, you can also state the length that you want returned.